Hey guys, welcome to episode 14 of Writers Uncut. I am Cheyenne Young and I'm on Instagram Live, and I'm trying to invite Deirdre, and then we'll get started. There she is. Hi Suzanne, thanks for joining. We're waiting for Deirdre to pop on here and then we'll get started.
Good morning!
Hi!
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year! What's up?
Oh, all the things.
Yeah,
Yeah, you've got a nice golden glow going on
I
behind
know. Well, it's very dreary, rainy, cold day here in
you.
Texas.
Yeah,
So there wasn't much lighting. I'm
yeah.
sitting right next to the window, but I said I'll put my fairy lights on.
I,
So
I love it. I love it. I love it. We took our tree down yesterday, and I feel like that Christmassy, colorful, warm light in our house is now gone, and we're just back to normal. It's gonna be disappointing.
that's
Um,
why I decorate my office with these lights so I can have it year round.
I love it.
Mhm.
I feel like I look really tired.
No, you look great. You look great.
Thanks. I'm awake. I see
I I didn't even brush my hair this morning,
you look good. You have
but
good.
it's still
You get away with
it's
it.
still winter break, so
I know. We're still in vacation mode. Uh, we were saying like it's going to be really hard to get back into the swing of things this year. I think, just like I'm feeling finally mellow, but I'm excited. About a couple things. And first, I would like to welcome everyone officially to Writers Uncut. This is our first episode of 2019, and we have some fun stuff in store for you guys this year. And the other thing, if you have any questions about writing, publishing, promotion, like the whole gamut there, please be sure to leave them in the comments at the bottom, and we'll try and answer them live as we go, which is kind of fun because if something springs to mind, or if you've been like ruminating on something, or kind of thinking like, I wish I had someone I could ask this question that's a writer that's kind of maybe been there, done that, something like that. Hey, Debbie. um, just leave your question in the comment and we will do our best to answer you. But I
yeah,
just wanted
ask
to,
some questions. Otherwise, we're just going to wing it, and it might get boring. So
yeah.
we're depending on you.
But we can talk for hours, so I don't know, like it might be
Mm-hmm.
more interesting to us that we're just like recording this live. Um, but yeah, so if you have writing questions, leave them there. If you are watching this, like this is a recording and you're on YouTube, which might happen because we have a YouTube page, you can leave your comments in the question box there and we'll answer them on a future episode. Or you can leave YouTube and come onto Instagram and leave your question on one of our pages. Or you can join us in our Facebook community. It's a private group, and you can ask questions there that maybe you don't want to ask or have answered live for whatever reason. If it's specific to your book or your story or something like that, you don't want to get all into it, and you want to give more of a description, then they'll fit in that little box. Please join us. It's Writers Uncut group, right? And we're on there all the time to answer your questions, just to talk about writing, post gifts, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not totally acquainted with us,
Yeah.
we're kind of in very similar situations. We are both full-time authors. We both started out self-published, and then we both had traditional publishing deals before we had an agent, and then we both got agents. So we kind of have some really exciting experience across the whole spectrum of publishing, except, I don't have that Stephanie Meyer Twilight experience quite yet. But we can answer your questions with self-publishing or traditional publishing. So we are here for you. We love sharing our advice. And so let's get started.
Okay.
It's the
Oh,
first.
I'll just add, I also have a pen name, and we both have kind of like explored the realm of publishing on both sides. And so, you know, I feel like we both have a decent amount of experience, and if we can't answer your question, we will do our best to find someone who can. So it's kind of nothing's off limits here. And we are uncut, meaning we're just off the cuff. This is unedited. We do a lot of editing in our lives, and we wanted this to be somewhere where we can just be real. And so if you have questions too about like the more the less practical side of writing, like not necessarily like the nitty-gritty grammatical how do I self-publish, questions like that. Like, what do I do if I just can't get motivated, or I'm stuck on a scene, stuff like that. Like the emotional side too. Like we've been riding this roller coaster for 10 years each, and so we can definitely speak to that as well. So anyway, now let's get going.
Yes. So I cannot believe it's already 2019. And the first Wednesday, you emailed me last night about today, and I was like, wait a minute, is it already Wednesday? But I'm excited.
I'm in that blissful place where I have to keep asking myself, wait, what day is it? And I'll check the calendar. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know. And I like that, but I am excited to get back into the routine and like working again. But
So, what are you working on now?
I have these lists. I actually was feeling a little bit overwhelmed last night. I kind of took some time to explore on paper kind of the things I have going on, the things I want to be doing, deadlines, like a few random deadlines that I have, mostly that I've created for myself because I find that helpful. And I just wrote everything down on a piece of paper, because sometimes when it's all just swimming in my mind, that's when I start to feel the stress and overwhelm. And so I wrote it all down. I call it a brain dump, got it all out. And then I started prioritizing, based on like either when I want things to be done or when they're due, or, that kind of thing. And it gave me a huge sense of relief. I'm still like, wow, how am I going to pull all of this off in this time frame? But it also, it's now written. And for those of us who are writers, like seeing things written, I think is very helpful, from just like the way the brain works. And so I did that, and I can talk a little bit more about some of the projects specifically, but that was kind of where I started. And I found, like, it was the new year. My quote yesterday here on Instagram was like, it's basically the first page of a new book in our lives, and how do we want to start that? And I want to start it with intention and with a strategy, rather than just like hoping like, oh, I'll get to it, this is going to happen sometime this year. And I can tend to be like a little bit like dreamy that way, but I want it to be very intentional and sort of create a schedule and a program for myself, I guess, for lack of a better word.
It's funny that you say that, because I have seen there's this little inspirational image that gets posted on Pinterest, and I've seen it every now and then. And it only really hit me recently, how powerful it is. And I'm going to butcher what it said, but it was something like, if you have a dream, you have to turn that into a goal. Mm-hmm. And then you have to turn that goal into a plan. And a plan without action is never going to get to your dream. And it's something like that. I mean, it's said better, but it's kind of just what you said. It's like, because I can remember a decade ago, I can remember longer than that, where I would spend all this time just blissfully daydreaming about how badly I wanted to be an author. And what was I doing? Absolutely nothing. I was just daydreaming about it. So it really, if you haven't started yet, or you've barely started, if you want to see your dreams come true, you really have to turn it into a plan. And like you said, set deadlines. Even if you're just setting the deadlines for yourself, they're very important. And then you have to actually act on it. You can't just make a plan. You have to actually sit down and focus on it. And, that's what we've both done. And now I've got a book on the shelves at Barnes & Noble right now. And I have spent so many years walking into that store and wishing I had a book there when I didn't. And now I do. And it's all because you have to turn that dream into action. I think that's the main part of it. Like, you cannot just sit there and keep dreaming, because your life is going to fly by regardless. So, I mean, it's already another year, so it's going to keep going by. So, be intentional and take that time for yourself. And I think in many instances like this, it's okay to be selfish with your life. Like, it's okay to have a dream and say, you know what, I deserve to pursue this, and I'm going to pursue this and make myself happy. You don't have to completely shirk all your responsibilities to follow your dream. I mean, I shirk a lot of them, but you don't have to. You can still have a family. You can still be a good partner and friend and employee at your day job, but you have to take that time to do something for yourself.
Yep. I am kind of building off of that quote. I've seen that too, and I really love it. And you got it. Another one, a woman I follow here on Instagram, her name's Rachel Hollis, and I'm not 100% I'm going to get this right, but I'm pretty sure it's hope is not a strategy. And I really believe there's a place for that daydreaming, that dreaming like, what do I want to do? But if you stay in that state for a year, 10 years, and then you get into a point in your life and you look back and you're like, wait, like I really had this passion in my heart for something and I never made it reality, there's going to be regret there. And, it's never too late, of course, but I really like what you're saying is, take a practical step, like start with a list, start brainstorming. If it's a book that you want to write, start to, even in your off time, we've talked a little bit about this, but think about your characters and just kind of start to create that. And then take some deliberate action sooner rather than later, because as you always say, the time will pass. And as we all get older, life gets busier and then things get kind of brushed under the rug. It's like, oh man. Oh, well, Cassie's here. Hi. LOL. My boss says that all the time. I don't think it's her original quote. No.
Probably not. Yeah, I've seen it a lot, and it's funny because those little inspirational internet, I call them Pinterest pictures, they get spread around a lot, and I usually just skim over them. But every now and then, and maybe it's because, the universe wants me to stop and notice it. Every now and then I will stop and notice something, and it sinks, hits home, sinks in. And that quote hit me a couple days ago, and I was like, it's so true, because it's good to have dreams. It's fun to have dreams, but if you don't actually take a step towards doing it, it's just going to be a stupid dream, What's the point in that? So it really is completely worth it. And I've talked to so many people, and I've seen people on Twitter say, oh, I wish I was writing a book, but I'm just watching Netflix. I'm like, so write something, even if it's just one sentence. Just tell yourself, I'm going to take out a notebook or open a Word file and just write one sentence. And you'd be surprised how often you end up writing a second sentence. And then before you know it, you've got a whole book. So, and I say it all the time, if you can quit, then go ahead and quit, because it's not for you. So I think if you've got the writing bug in your heart, you're not going to be able to quit. And if you can't quit, then take a step. And this can be your year. This can be the year you accomplish something you haven't done yet. So that's really exciting.
I love that. I don't know if you just noticed that I shrank.
No.
Like my chair, in case anyone's watching, they're like, what's going on? My chair went down. Okay, there you go. While you were talking, I went,
It's weird. I was looking at you the whole time I was talking, and I did not notice, but that's one of my personality traits, is not really noticing anything. So
you were saying the word sink, and I was actually like, for some reason, yep, it doesn't go away. If you've got that writing bug, it doesn't go away. I know I sometimes wish it would too, but not really. It's a good bug to have. So hopefully not. I'm short enough. Excuse me. So we started talking a little bit about our 2019 goals and kind of what's coming ahead for us. I said that I started just writing everything down, everything I want to have happen and the things that need to happen and all that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you have coming up, and I can get back to more of the details in mine too?
Yeah, I actually haven't written anything down yet. I did get a shiny new planner that I was really excited about, and I bought some really cute washi tape for it.
Ooh.
And I got this one that's little books. I don't know if you can.
Oh, that's
so.
Oh.
It was like $5 on Amazon. So I decided to use this one just for my book signings. So I actually have my first official book signing this Saturday. Yay. And I decorated the Saturday on my planner with this tape. So that's how I spent a good 15 minutes of my time this year. But anyway, so yeah, I don't have any official anything I've written down yet, but I will, because I'm a very big planner. But this year I have a very exciting phone call from my agent that told me very exciting news that we're not allowed to talk about yet. So at some point, that's going to happen, which would be fun. I am also planning on, and I say planning on because it's a plan that I've made, selling another book this year. And I have a book on submission, and we know that takes forever, so hopefully that'll happen this year. And I'm also really excited about my new book idea that I'm writing. and I actually have not started any of it. It's all in my head right now.
Yeah.
I have like, it's really weird, and I'll say this all the time, but every book I write ends up being a different process, even though I'm very
Yeah.
methodical in what I do. Every
I hear
book's
that.
different. So this book, it is fully, like, I would say 90% outlined in my brain right now. And
Hmm.
I've almost been scared to write it down because it's so perfect in my head. And I've actually told several people in detail this. I have quite a few. I'm very lucky to live in Houston because we have so many authors here. And I've
Yeah.
gone on like 3 or 4 lunch dates or walks, and I've told my friends, like,
Huh.
okay, here's the whole book. And it takes me like 20 minutes to say the entire thing.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, how much have you had written? And I'm like, nothing. This is all in my head right now. So that's kind of a really fun new thing for me because usually I don't figure out my entire outline or plot line until I
Hmm.
start writing it down.
Hmm.
And with The Last Wish of Sasha Cade, I got the idea and I grabbed a scrap piece of paper and I wrote the prologue on a scrap piece of paper. And then I waited like a month and then I outlined the book because I was busy at the time and didn't have time.
Yeah.
So, and that prologue is pretty much unchanged in the official book. I think I changed a couple names around,
Hmm.
like names of the students in the prologue because I had based them off of real people I know, so I changed it. And no, I don't have it. I was looking like it has to be somewhere
Yeah.
because I know I put it in one of my spirals because I have dozens and dozens of spirals, and it's like I haven't found it, but I'm still looking for it because that would be a very cool thing to post online. But I
Yeah.
did move houses between that, so I don't know. I hope I find it. But yeah, so it's like every book I write ends up having this different process. And
Yeah.
this new one, and I'm not even sure when I'm going to start writing it,
Huh.
but I'm so excited. And it's like a little movie, and I feel like it's a movie that I've watched in my head like 100 times already.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's the one I told you about via email.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. So my goals this year is I'm going to actually write the thing. So that'll be fun. And I'm hoping to sell another book. And also I have super unbelievably exciting news that I can't share yet because that's the nature of publishing. So that's pretty much my 2019 in a nutshell.
Um, a couple of things. One is it's interesting that, it sounds a little bit like you're pantsing there, which I know you're not, but uh oh no.
We had
Avid
a
Reader
comment.
Diary says hello. I'm interrupting myself. She's just saying, she's just wishing us a happy, great year ahead. And sorry she can't say it's past 1 a.m. here, and she's currently caught up in Shadow and Bone. Well,
Oh, I don't blame you. Get
priorities.
back to that book. That's a good book. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. We have been talking a little bit about doing an evening episode. So like Wednesday
Mhm.
morning and then maybe a Wednesday evening, like
Mhm.
alternate weeks, some kind of schedule. We just haven't worked it out yet because we have other things going on, I guess. But we are hoping to do an evening episode, so maybe you'll be able to catch us live. But there's always the YouTube where you can do the replay. Thanks everyone for joining us. I was just
Hey,
starting
hi,
to say,
Alyssa.
though, it sounds a little bit like you're pantsing, and I have two comments to say, which I know you're an outliner through and through.
I was about to say, don't
No,
call me
no,
a pantser.
no. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. No, but I think it's really important in the process to visualize and really get clear on even what, like, your story, what your characters look like, how they talk, and kind of spend a little bit of time daydreaming, because when you bring it to the page, it becomes so much richer when you already know what they look like. The same as if, I know what you look like, and if I were to write a description of you, it would be clear if than it would be if I had never seen you and someone had like told me what you looked like or something.
Yes, you'd be like, she has long brown hair. She always looks like she hasn't slept quite long enough.
Short blonde hair and same thing. But yeah, I think it's important to do that visualization process too. And even with scenes, kind of like picture them happening almost like a movie, like you were saying. I think that's really good. And then the other thing I was saying, that I wanted to say was, I also have the same experience. Each book that I approach is slightly different, and I have a very distinct outlining process. And as I have the chapters and the kind of a way I do it. But again, each book I approach is slightly different, but I do have that to fall back on. So if I do get stuck or like lost and confused in my outline, I have like a you know, I have like a template that I can come back to. It's really just in my head. It's not a physical template, which you have a physical template.
I do. Check out my Instagram profile page under the link tree. I have a downloadable template that I use. It's actually the actual one that I use every time I start writing a new
Yeah.
book. So
Yeah.
check it out.
But I think it is important to kind of be fluid in that way. Like you were
Oh, yeah.
saying, you know, it's coming to you a little differently than ordinary, you know, your ordinary stories come to you. And I think it's important to kind of listen to that muse in a way, to sort of just let it all filter in however it's going to filter in. And then when you get to the outlining process, you have your template, you have your, you know, you have the outline for how to do it, but it can kind of come to you organically. And it's an interesting balance, you know, the artist side and the creative side as writers, and then the more nuts and bolts, kind of get things out onto the page in a way that's going to make sense to a reader and follow an arc and all of that stuff that
Right.
we have to pay attention.
Well, we're architects and we are also the construction workers.
Yeah.
So we
Ooh,
can
I like that.
daydream the whole scope of the book, but then we also have to, you know, get the nitty gritty and down to the sentence level and make it
Yeah.
a good story. Yeah, and it's been really fun with this new idea that I've brainstorming, because
Yeah.
I've never done this to a whole novel before. And like one of my first books called City of Legends, there's a very intense scene towards the end of the book that's my favorite scene. And that scene was one of the first things that ever came to me when I had the idea. And I must have played that scene in my head 100 times. Like it literally looks like a very expensive, high budget movie shot in my head. Like, because I've thought of it so much. And I
Yeah.
often felt like as I was writing the book, I was just kind of writing to get to that part so I could finally write that part.
Yeah.
And when I did, it was so much fun. It was so powerful. It was so exciting because I was almost just transcribing what I was already seeing in my head.
Mhm.
So that was kind of my first instance of doing that.
Mhm.
And now with this, it's like I've transformed it into this, yes, our fan book art just said, yes, I read City of Legends. So I'm talking about what happens to Macy's dad at the end of that book. That was the scene. So anyway, it's also kind of brutal and graphic, and my editor made me tone it down a bit. But anyway, like it's fun, and that's what's so great about writing books is that even me, because I'm very, like I said, the engineer in my brain is, because that's what I did before I wrote full time, is always trying to make a precise formula and diagram and outline to just write each book, you know, very methodically. And while I do follow the outline and I do that in some degree, each book is a completely different experience. So like the book I have that's on submission right now, it's called Before You Wake. I started it out the same as always, and then it just became a complete mess. So I must have rewritten that thing like 7 or 8 times. And then my agent had me take out an entire point of view. So then I had to make those loose ends, you know. So everything's a different process. And this new project, I'm so excited for it. And I really have no idea when I'm going to start. And I'm almost scared to start writing it, because then it won't just be in my head anymore. And there's this little fear that the product won't turn out as great as it is in your head. So this will be fun to see as the year goes on what happens with this book. But I'm super excited about it.
That I'm too, but that's a very real thing. Like if you've written a book before, like for people who've never written a book, like, you know, there's a lot of factors and fear and anxiety in the process. But if you've already written a book, that doesn't go away. Just FYI, it kind of changes its shape a little bit. It becomes more like, will I be able to write another book? Like, did I exhaust all my creativity? Do I even know how to put words together to form a sentence?
What's a sentence?
Yeah. And so that's something interesting to talk about, which is actually a nice segue into my next project for my agent. I wrote a book a long time ago called Times Strange and Wonderful, which I love. Yes, the truth is it can get scary. So anyway, Times Strange and Wonderful. It's contemporary YA with some mystery. And it started one way, and I've rewritten it several times for myself and then for my agent. And now I'm at a crossroads where she gave me a bunch of feedback. Hi, Anne, if you're watching this later. And I really love what she's contributed. And then I have this other idea to kind of merge. And I don't know I'm actually probably going to email you about this later. I don't know if I should scrap this and start over or rewrite again and see what I can do, because I already have the characters. Like, I know them really, really well. I love them.
It's a good story. I don't think you should scrap it.
Okay, that's an ensemble, and it alternates from 6 points of view, and it can work really, really well with this other story that I'm kind of working on retelling a little bit or incorporating in it. And so I'm gonna have to put in a lot of brain time, thinking time, brainstorming, and to see how I can make this all work. And that's it's like one of my top items for the new year, actually for the coming month. And it is scary to kind of think like, okay, how can I make this happen? Like, it's like a puzzle. We both do a lot of jigsaw puzzles, or I do one a year. I don't do a lot. I do one a year.
I do like one a week probably. It's bad. If you watch my Instagram feed, you'll see like it's an obsession. But I listen to audiobooks while I do the puzzles. So I'm still technically working because reading is working. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. But I have all of the pieces in place. I mean, I have all the puzzle pieces, and I just have to figure out how to put them into place. And I think that's intimidating. But as a writer, I tell myself, like, it can be done. Like, I love your quote about we're both the architects and the construction workers. And, I certainly have no skill in that area, but I can rearrange words and add new ones. And I have to just remind myself that I can do that. And if for some reason I feel like I can't, I just have to, it's a matter of believing. And so I don't really know what I'm saying, but that's on top of my list this coming month.
Well, that's a fear, and it's so funny. I actually have metaphors for everything in life. I was about to say, if you've ever been really in shape fitness-wise, and then you slack off for a few months, and then you try going back to work out, and you're like, oh, I cannot do this. This is so hard. It's painful. I'm out of shape. I can't do this. You can remember back when you could do it, and that will kind of like encourage you to get back into shape.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this as someone who's completely out of shape thanks to my broken ankle last year. But it's like, I always think that way when it comes to writing. And this is especially important if you've already written one manuscript, because it's so funny. I call it this like a horrific wall of fear. Because like in every single project I write, at least once, usually 2 or 3 or 4 times, like once when I'm writing it, once when my agent gets back to me, and once when my editor gives me her edit letter, it's like there's this feeling where you're like, oh my God, this is too much. This is overwhelming. I cannot do it. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's no way this is going to work out. And you just have to remember you've done it before, or if you haven't done it before, you can get through it. And it's like, it's so funny because every time I hit that wall, and it's usually when my agent gets back to me or my editor gets back to me, and I'm just like, and I'm thinking with your 6 point of view, story, it's like, this is too complicated, this is too hard. And it's okay to kind of take a day or two and just think there's no way I can do this. And it's overwhelming, but you just have to power through it, just show up every day and just do a little bit of work, and you will get through it, and you'll get to the other side, and you will be in shape again. And guess what? The next book you write, it's going to happen all over again. So it's always this, and like we talk about, publishing and writing is a roller coaster. And it's like, that's one thing that's actually gotten me through the last couple books I've written, because now I'm on my 6th traditional book. And it's like, that's what gets me through that wall of terror. It's okay, I've done it before, I can get through it this time. So, because I have certainly been sitting on the floor with a printed out pile of edits, thinking, there's no way I can do this, I don't know what to do. And you figure it out. So just don't lose faith in yourself, and just, it's better than going to the gym and exercising, people. So
I really like that. And it makes me think of, you're at the base of a mountain, like you're going to do a hike. If we're going to work on use the workout metaphor, and you're looking up and you're like, how am I going to get up there? And it's literally a matter of putting one foot in front of the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then same with the words, same with the scenes, same with the chapters. So thank you for
and when you're at the top of the mountain, metaphorically, and in real life, there's no mountains around me to climb. Make sure you take a second to stop and look back at where you started, because that always kind of propels me forward when I feel like I'm stuck and I'm never going to achieve anything. Look back and realize how far you've came, because you have hiked up a huge mountain. Even if all you've done is written your first manuscript, even if you're querying, you have gotten so much farther than most people have. And it's funny because your agent Anne was Snapchatting me yesterday. She's like, I was like, what are you up to? She's like, oh, I'm just sending a bunch of rejections. She was replying to her queries. I said, you're rejecting people on the first day of the year? This is so horrible. She's like, she goes, well, yeah. And she's like, well, I got to get to it at some point. And I said, yeah, I don't, but I was just like, you are mean, you are shattering people's dreams. But if that's you, if you're getting the rejections rolling in, and even after you get an agent, even after you get a book deal, you still get rejections. You just have to take a second and stop and look down the metaphorical mountain and realize how far you've come. Because if you're getting rejected, that means you've done something. That means you've accomplished something and you've moved on to the next step. And there's nothing wrong with getting rejected. So, yeah, I guess I'm done with that metaphor. But yeah, Anna's so mean. I was like, what?
I also I'm going to extend the metaphor, actually. I'm not quite done.
Okay.
I really like the idea of it is a journey, and you can look back and see where you've come from. You can look forward and see, the hills you still have to climb, but you are in it. If you've started writing a manuscript, if you've written a manuscript, if you're querying, if you're somewhere along the way, that means you're doing it. You've taken the action that we sort of started talking about here. And I think that's really powerful. And I think, you just have to keep going, and hopefully along the way you'll meet wonderful friends that can kind of cheer you on when you start to lag. You can find ways to nourish yourself, your creativity, whether it's with writing conferences, groups, books that talk about craft, all kinds of things that just kind of propel you forward when you start to feel a little low on energy. And then there's also just that sense of accomplishment that you've done something, and pat yourself on the back. Don't let that slip by. It's interesting. We're kind of on that threshold, looking back at the year before and then looking ahead to what's to come. So very exciting. I think I have to go. I don't know what time it is, but I think I'm nearing my. Oh, okay, cool. So I have a few other projects on the horizon, but mostly they're for my name and my traditional name. I have a book on submission, so my fingers are still crossed that something exciting will happen with that. And my agent has another one of my books. Actually, she just passed it along to her beta reader that she has. We're talking about Anne. Talking about you a lot, Anne, if you're watching.
I don't think she's here.
Yeah, I don't think she's here right now, but she sends manuscripts onto someone else to read before we kind of move into the submission process. And that's just to make sure, and this is also really helpful whether you're self-publishing or not, to have another set of eyes, because you can become so close and so immersed in your world that things that are in your head already aren't necessarily on the page, or like little things you might miss. It's really helpful to have a clean set of eyes that has never looked at it before. Just review, reread, and make sure that everything's in order. And I'm on that process with the other manuscript that she has of mine. So that's one's on submission, one's in process, and then I have the other one that I'm going to be working on in the coming year. So that's kind of my. What's that?
So that's exciting.
Yeah. And I think I'm also going to add. We're talking a lot about just writing here so far in those projects, but there's the whole other subset of activities that writers must do, which includes promoting our work, marketing, coming up with creative ways to find readers and connect them with our work. And that's another huge part. And I know you kind of do this. You write in the morning, and then you do all the the admin stuff in the afternoon after you've kind of used up that the cream, the good juice.
Mm-hmm. My brain is not creative at the end of the day. And some people are night owls. I'm a night owl for doing puzzles, not for creating anything. So yeah.
And so one of my my things on my to-do list is to do more of the admin type stuff, be more diligent about incorporating it deliberately into each day, and not just when I have a half an hour or a couple hours to work on it.
Well, that's so important. Yeah. Being a writer is really 10% writing and 90% everything else. I call it the admin stuff because it's you're marketing, you're updating social media, updating your website, all kinds of crap. I was just doing tax documents because we've got a new year and I'm kind of wrapping up my 2018 taxes. So it's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, which is kind of a bummer because if you want to be a professional author as your career, you really only get to do the fun stuff like 10% of the time.
Yeah,
So, but it's all worth it. So,
it is.
um, also, I forgot to mention one thing I'm doing this year is some traveling. I will be in Orlando, Florida in February for the Trinity Author Book Festival.
I didn't know about this.
Um, yeah, I got invited. I was super excited because it's like after a couple of years of applying to go to a bunch of places and being told no, you're not good enough, I actually got invited by someone, so that was fun. There's going to be a bunch of authors are going to be there. So if you're in the Orlando, Florida area, keep an eye out for that in February. And then in July, I'm going with Tracy. She might still be on here. I'm not sure. I'm going with Tracy to the RWA National Convention in New York City. So excited about that because I haven't been to New York in 2 years, and every time you go to New York, it's a good time. And also, one little thing that you guys could keep your fingers crossed for me on is I actually got over my anxiety. I don't think I'm over it. I'm still very anxious about it. I submitted my book, The Last Wish of Sasha Cade, for a Rita Award this year, which I guess it would be last year's. I don't know. Which is a very exciting author award for RWA, which is the Romance Writers Association, or I don't know. What's it called, Tracy? I don't know.
Right.
Anyway, RWA.
Is it association?
Romance Writers of America, I believe is what it is.
Yeah.
So I was really nervous because I have always wanted to have a book to submit to the Rita Awards, and I've always been very scared of it. And I thought, you know what, I'm proud of Sasha. It's the best book I've ever written. So I bit the bullet and I submitted it. And I think within a couple of months they're going to start judging and then announce the finalists. So, fingers crossed. It's the first and only contest I've ever entered. So I'm super nervous about it. And I'm thinking I probably shouldn't have mentioned it because then if nothing happened, then we wouldn't have to know. But anyway, so that was kind of an author milestone for me, was just getting over the anxiety and having faith in my book because it is the best thing I've written. So I'm very proud of it. And I'm so excited to go to New York because every year the conference is in a different location. And this year, this year it happens to be in my favorite city, but it's also the most expensive city, so that kind of sucks. But I'm going with Tracy, and we're going to be roommates, and I'm very, very excited. And maybe we can do some kind of Writers Uncut from New York City.
That'd be fun. That'd be very fun. I would love that. I think it's important that you mentioned submitting to the Ritas because I think it gives people like hope and courage, like to do things that maybe feel outside the box or maybe feel like a little bit far away, but like, if you can kind of muster up that courage, like good things can happen. And even if they don't, for whatever reason, like you try.
It's just another rejection. We're writers. We're used to rejections. Just toss it over your shoulder, get over it. But I kind of think back to what my editor from Alloy Entertainment told me with City of Legends, my first traditionally published book. She actually reached out to me to publish the series. And I had told her, it's really funny because I have your author submission website bookmarked and I have looked at it 100 times and I've been too scared to actually submit myself because back then I was self-published and didn't think I was good enough to get a traditional deal. And she said, you never know until you try. You should always try. And so I literally think of her words all the time. And I thought of her words when I submitted myself. So, I'd rather submit and not, have anything come of it than spend all year thinking, I wonder what would have happened. So sometimes we just have to take a chance on ourselves and really, what's the worst that can happen? If you're rejected, if you fail, oh well, it's all part of being a writer. You're going to fail a billion times. So, it's just one more failure on the way to success. And if you succeed, then yay. So fingers crossed.
We're full of quotes today. I'm gonna wrap up with one more related to yours. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and so kind of
Michael Scott.
Is it him? I thought it was like a hockey player.
Oh my gosh, no, it is a hockey player. But if you're a fan of The Office, you will be laughing at what I just said. So that one's for you.
But anyway, I think this is a really good beginning to 2019. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Writers Uncut. We will be back next Wednesday at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern, and 10 or 11, depending on where you are in Central.
Texas time, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're in Houston, Texas, it'll be 11 a.m. Because I just keep to myself. I consider it Texas time. And I recently learned Texas has 2 time zones, so
Yeah, I did
kind of
not.
embarrassing. I'm a native Texan and I had no idea. But anyway, Texas is huge though. You can drive for like 10 hours and still be in Texas.
Yeah.
So anyway. Thanks for joining us, and make sure you check out our Facebook page, Writers Uncut Group, and join and chat with us there. And make sure you watch us on YouTube, and please subscribe to us on YouTube because we can get a custom URL once we have 100 subscribers, because they're rude like that. I don't know. So anyway, thank you all for joining.
Yes, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye.
See you next week.